Um, so I just want to welcome everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Keacte. I'm the CEO of Fun Inc., Even Better with Friends. We're the founder of the public calendar NPSI.rocks. So I kind of cobbled this presentation together just in the last few days, really. So there's a lot of new stuff in here, in inverted commas. So during the course of this presentation, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to give you some practical skills that will help you get the most out of your NPSI experience and your enjoyment of NPSI. So, welcome to NPSI.rocks top 20 tips to supercharge your NPSI experience. Ta-da! There should be like a drum roll or fanfare or something like that, I presume. So, welcome. During the course of this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about why and how you can supercharge your NPSI experience. So before I go on, it's fairly obvious, but just to clarify, when I say supercharge, I'm talking about taking it from ordinary to exceptional. So in effect, this is maximizing your fun, improving your personal performance, helping you stand out in a good way, and help you get more engaged with Eve. The more you get out of every moment you play, you will get more out of every moment you play with less stress, more impact, and more enjoyment. So it's not just about playing the game. Squeaky chair, sorry. It's about owning the experience. Now, so this list itself, it's not exhaustive. One thing is for certain, though, is it's a comprehensive. Basically, it's a comprehensive list of practical advice that is born from many years of experience and advocacy in NPSI and fleet commanding. So what I'm hoping that this list will allow you to do is to engage more with the content and take more enjoyment from NPSI. And by planning and some simple preparation steps, you can get the maximum benefit. So just to break a news flash, some of the following tips, they're actually centered around, although they're centered around internet spaceships, these are actually tips that you might use in your real world existence. So just be conscious of that. That makes sense. So first off, we're going to cover why you should supercharge your NPSI experience. Preparation is key to enjoyment in life. It may sort of sound a bit profound for internet spaceships, but preparation is about, it isn't about control, it's about freedom. When you're prepared, you're not frozen by uncertainty. You're not scrambling. You're ready. You're free. You're free to be present. You're engaged and open to whatever in effect is thrown at you. That's kind of where the enjoyment thrives, really. So this is 100% the same for internet spaceships. So just think about this scenario. Now, I don't know if any of you are like solo pilots or have tried solo, but just imagine that for the purpose of this, sorry, I just got distracted there. So just imagine for a moment you're out soloing in a slicer. You get that engagement you're dreaming of. Your heart's pumping, your hands are shaking, you overheat your guns and your repper, you're ducking, you're diving in and out. You kill that destroyer fit out to kill you right under the nose of his buddies. You're excited, the thrill of the fight, the sense of achievement, that elation that you get. Then you realize that you've got no paste to repair your guns. Your guns are at 95%, your prop mod's toast at 90%, your repper's smoking, you're a sitting duck. You've got no hope of running that bubble camp when you leave. 90% heat damage on your guns, and you're not going to get out safe. If only you'd have listened to point 7 and made sure that you had all of your ship's consumables. Now, this is, of course, a hypothetical example, but I've got to say, every fleet I run, there is at least maybe 2, 3, perhaps even 4 or 5 times in a fleet that I hear somebody ask for paste or see somebody ask for paste. So I kind of, that was just an example to just demonstrate, just one example there. Anyhow, moving on. Got a list here about why preparation is so important. Less stress means more joy. When you're unprepared, your brain shifts into kind of a survival mode. But when you're prepared, you relax. Now, I know which I'd rather be. When you're not prepared, you focus on the doing. and not the worrying. And that additional emotional bandwidth that you have, it then lets you enjoy the moment and not fear it. And there's an amazing saying actually, and it's the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. In effect, the effort and preparation that you put into whatever you're doing during a calm, low risk times, it will reduce those losses, that pain, that failure that you could face when real challenges hit. So if you train hard, if you practice, and if you prepare when nothing urgent is happening, then when the pressure's on, in, say, for instance, in combat, for example, or in life, in crisis, or whatever it might be, you're going to perform. You're going to perform better, you're going to suffer less, and you're more likely to succeed. Now, the second point is confidence grows from your readiness. And knowing that you've practiced and planned boosts your own confidence. So when you first learn, like, for instance, just driving a car, you don't just get into a car and drive. You're taught how to park, how to drive it. And then you practice. And then you take your driving test and you prove that you're ready, so you'll pass. It's then at that point you'll really learn to drive and that your confidence will grow with that time. So that's another demonstration of how you can supercharge it. Preparation amplifies spontaneity. It seems kind of paradoxical, but prepared people handle the unexpected better. They can pivot, they can improvise, they can take wild opportunity without things turning into a catastrophe or disaster or what have you. And the last couple, you learn more when you prep ahead of time. You're not spending all of your time soaking in the experience, mentally catching up. You're actually soaking in that experience and you're learning faster and growing more. And at the end of the day, preparation shouldn't be a chore. I know it sometimes feels like it, but it's actually the hidden engine of freedom and confidence and joy. It doesn't restrict you, it actually unlocks you. Because it allows, I know preparation seems dull, prepping for this, prepping for that, schools, universities, work, whatever it might be. But it actually unlocks you. It might seem dull, but it's actually that invisible shield that keeps you from bleeding when it matters the most, if that makes sense. So we all know this. Eve is pretty unforgiving. It's an unforgiving sandbox. But the best experiences within Eve actually only happen when you're ready for them. And I've got a fairly sort of 4 point here about why preparation is the foundation of fun in Eve. Eve and NPSI fleets specifically, Eve doesn't wait for you. NPSI fleets form quickly. And if you're not in a doctrine ship or don't have the tools or you're left behind or what have you, being prepared, if you're not prepared, in effect, it means you get into the fleet and you're not going to miss the fleet in a way. You're going to get left behind if you're not ready. And if it's still fitting your ship and so on and so forth, or worse, you're not even going to be on comms, for example, because you didn't get it installed before the fleet and so on. Now, a prepared pilot also survives longer, and they do kill more. You don't need elite skills to be useful. You just the right fit, the right ammo, the right overview, the right attitude to get set up in advance and so on. The more you're prepared, the more you contribute and the more exciting the fights become. I always say this, that every fleet I run, make sure you got your consumables, make sure you got mobile depot and bring some spare key modules. If you burn them out, you can just swap them out and job done. The last 2 points on this slide are less logistics equals more content. If you've got ship staged and your comms sorted, you can just jump on at a moment's notice, jump into a fleet, get out, get active. Eve is best played when you're doing it that way, not planning to do it. Because planning, although I've contraring myself here by saying this, Eve is best when you're doing and not planning to do it, if that makes sense. You will find that you learn faster and you will level up quicker when you're prepared. Your brain isn't overwhelmed with the basics. That space that you have, that mental space, that it lets you focus on fleet mechanics, target calling, scouting, sort of other high level stuff. Now, because you're in that sandbox, preparation gives you the tools to shape that experience. not just watch it from afar happening as you kind of flounder, if that makes sense. So to supercharge your EVE Online NPSI experience, you're effectively looking to optimize everything possible that will lead you to more action, more impact, and more fun. If you adopt these tips, you're going to have less downtime between fleets, less stress, and less confusion when you're fleeting up. So, without further ado, here's the Supercharge list. Now, for the most part, um, the Supercharge tips fall into the following categories: physical preparation, personal mindset, tools, technology, really obvious things, in-fleet conduct, attitudes, combat strategy, and your own personal contribution and reputation. Now, when I was knocking this together, I was going to try and subdivide each of the tips into different categories, and I started doing it, and I just found that some of the tips just fell into multiple categories, and it got too confusing, and so I just decided to leave it as is. But I thought noteworthy to identify that to have the ability to supercharge that experience, there are a number of different areas that can be impacted whilst you try to improve your own experience. So let's look at the list. In EVE Online, exiting up signals your intention to join a fleet. Kind of, this has been covered in the past. You will no doubt use it in EVE Uni. Other fleets obviously will use it. It signals your intention to join a fleet, and in order to join that fleet, you must write an X in an appropriate channel and wait for the fleet invite. Now, depending on who you fly with, what groups you fly with, and so on and so forth, sometimes that's immediate. Sometimes it's going to take a while. The fleet commander, the SC, will be he'll be busy. He'll be getting organised. He'll be sorting out critical roles. He'll be very busy sort of forming the fleet. So just be patient. Don't spam the channel with X's and so on and so forth, because all it is noise in the channel that is then going to miss other people and so on and so forth. In the event that you are missed and you have to X up after like another few minutes sort of thing, just X up again. Most groups and most NPSI groups use an in-game chat channel to obviously X up, and all of those channels are available on npsi.rocks. I kind of get this every time. At least one person, maybe once a week, 1 to 4 nights sort of thing. Somebody doesn't have the comms installed. Just go do yourself a favor. If you're intending to go along to a round, just make sure you've got the correct comms installed. Before form up, check the respective NPSI ping. Understand what comms the fleet will be using. I think now the majority of fleets actually take place on Discord. However, I know that, like Funning, for example, we use Mumble. There are some groups that use TeamSpeak. I would just say just install those. Then that way you can fall back as required. I'll be honest, I've had no end of grief with Discord voice in fleets when I've used it. That's why I kind of use a dedicated Mumble server rather than rely on Discord. But I've had issues in the AT basically using Discord, which is not a good time to have it. It's really important you actually get those comms installed early, though. It just means that the FC will avoid them from having to repeat themselves a lot during their form up, and it's just really, really appreciated. So, the majority of people do this already, but setting a push to talk key is really, really essential in fleets. It's for both. There's actually two reasons. It's for practical reasons and for community reasons. Setting a push to talk key, it prevents open mic chaos. If you had 30 people or 20 people all on voice activation, you'll be hearing somebody doing the pots and pans in the background. You'll be hearing the dog having a good old bark, the kid having a meltdown, and that sort of thing. Open mics pick up everything: background noise, breathing, typing, music, pets, roommates, everything. Multiply that by 30 people in a fleet, it's comms hell for an FC. Just check that you could basically set that push to talk key. Basically, comms will be so much cleaner. They will be just more focused, and it will make your experience a whole host better. It also helps when you get into a fight. in a fight, timing is absolutely everything. FCs, scouts, Logi, they need to hear and respond instantly. If your mic is flooding the channel, you're going to drown out critical orders. I kind of mentioned, obviously, about the kind of community aspect of it. Setting a push to talk key kind of shows respect for the fleet as well, because it shows that you care about comms discipline. Every FC and every sort of seasoned pilot will really, really, really appreciate. So just be mindful of this. It builds trust faster, basically. I suppose the cut and thrust about this is a push to talk key means better comms, better discipline. It will end up being a better fleet. It protects the fleet's performance. It protects the FC's sanity. I'll laugh at that because it's true. And it actually protects your own dignity. I will tell a really quick 10-second story. I actually remember somebody being on push to talk, not on push to talk, voice activation when they were in the toilet. And put it this way, it wasn't standing up. So just to avoid that and losing your dignity and having to leave corp. It's basically set it, use it, test it, use it, I should say. Now, this one's an obvious one, but it's probably learn to moderate your language, in effect. Listen to the instructions and listen to the FC, and don't use the word jump in fleet unless you're the FC. There are so many targets that I've seen in the past that we've actually lost because Elena, I see, because people are reacting to the word jump without it being the FC. Now, we've all seen the jump memes, I can't remember what the animal is jumping off the cliff and so on and so forth, probably lemmings or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, that's the one. In all fairness, it's totally cringe. It is totally cringe, but it's 100% accurate. I see it, half a dozen times in a fleet. Generally, when somebody does that, I would just say, okay, fine, give us recon far side, because they're now the forward scout, because they've triggered the trap that potentially we're trying to trigger. If that makes sense. So and I say this every time somebody says jump in a fleet, a little piece of me dies because I know that there is going to be a flurry of gate activations, and it's not one, it's not two, it's potentially 3, 4, 5. If you're in a fleet of 40 people, you're potentially going to get 10% of the fleet going through. 10% of the fleet going through. That is then a small gang going through to a system. Whatever target we had is now gone. So just don't use the J word, basically. And this kind of links on. Once the FC actually finds a fight, give comms priority over to the people that need it. Respect the FC as best as possible and try to keep comms as clear so they can effectively call targets. Having a third-party narrative about how a person is scrammed, they're webbed and deep in structure, whilst it's very, very, very sad for them, comms during a fight should be purely strategic information, not noise about non-essential, non-critical items. Things like Logi is not holding, local is spiking, things that can easily tip the balance against the fleet. So, effectively that the FC needs to know. If there's noise going on, the FC might not specifically hear a command that's saying Logi is breaking or Logi is not holding, local spike. Or do you see what I mean? This means to keep the communication channel clear unless you have critical information to relate. So saying something like break, or check, or break local up by 30, 40 battleships on scan, or whatever it might be. If you do have that critical information, ask for a break or a check in communications by saying that. Say this once, then wait for the FC to acknowledge. If everybody hears that, they should literally just automatically be silent. That's how it is on my fleets, pretty much for the most part, I'd say. It's then down to the FC to then acknowledge that person and ask what they have. What I don't want to hear, or what I know FCs don't want to hear, is people using break, locals up by 1, because that's not a break, if you see what I mean. So it's very, very important about having, really set standard comms in battles. Now, I think Evunio's got a section on the wiki about overview settings, so I'm not going to talk about it kind of at length, but a decent overview in Eve is essential for PvP. and movement within New Eden. The overview actually, I think, is one of the most essential components of Eve, and your visibility of space. Obviously, you've got brackets and so on and so forth, but the brackets are around a screen that's rectangular and so on and so forth. Whereas your overview, it's more refined and it's easier to see. So obviously it's customizable. You can have tabs set up that it will greatly assist you in your speed of movement, your speed of mobility of locking targets, and your combat effectiveness. I know obviously more recently they've got the separated tabs. So I've actually got just a pure ship tab for combat and also a general movement overview. That works really well for me. I know I've seen like Pando, he's got multiple, like I think probably about half a dozen. He's got one for Logi, one for Boosters, one for this, one for that, across the top line of his monsters or across his client. It really is, it's down to you to kind of work out what works best for you. The game does come with a default overview set. It's insufficient. Let's face it. It's pick an overview that is a player built overview and then build on that. And add new ships as and when they get added to the game. There's nothing worse than all of a sudden dying. And I'll be honest with you, it's happened to me when I actually got a new PC and I exported my old overview from my old PC. And I didn't add stuff to the new overview. And basically I died. And what it was because I didn't have critical ships on. It was like Talos or something like that. I just got absolutely blapped. Quite funny, to be fair. I learned something that day. I would actually go so far as to say I'd recommend set aside sort of an afternoon, couple of hours maybe, or an evening, and build an overview from the ground up. Spend some time understanding the nuts and bolts of it. You'll understand it at the end of it. It's a really useful thing. Now, everybody knows that I always say this. Make sure your fleet mate clones are set to a sensible home station and have appropriate clone sets in their head. Basically, don't be this guy. I'll just let you look at that for a moment. Hasten to add, it wasn't on my fleet. Yes, 14 build pod. Don't know for why, for how, but clearly that was not a good day. Always check your pod. Before you undock on any NPSI roam, always check your pod. You shouldn't be in a learning or training clone. And totally what Dark from Goal has just said. Encourage other fleet members to check, if you see what I mean. So it's super important to do it. And just remind, if the FC forgets, nudge the FC, because the FC will appreciate it. Guaranteed they will appreciate it. I know I do, because when somebody reminds me, I go, oh yeah, check your pods. So I always do this on my fleets. I kind of agree standing orders. Prior to any fleet commencing, a good FC should advise the fleet about standing orders and your movement in game. So a good example of this would be if you land on a gate and the standing order is to hold, then you should hold. If you land on a gate, then the standing order is to orbit. If you land on a gate and the standing order is to jump on contact and then align to the next gate, you should jump on contact and align to the next gate. These are very, very, very simple actions. They're very, very simple actions that are going to mean you're not going to get left behind. And it also means, by contrast, it means that you're not going to jump into a 50-man gate camp and die. You'd be amazed the amount of people that don't and cannot follow basic instructions, Alina. You would be amazed. Every fleet is different. Every FC is different. So it might not be said, but you will probably soon work it out if you're not told explicitly what to do. Because when you land on a gate, you're not going through that gate until the J word is said. If you see what I mean. So it's really important, just listening. And this goes back to the kind of introduction I mentioned about. These are just practical skills that actually will impact your life. Just listening attentively, listening with focus, and not reading between the lines of the subtext and so on and so forth. again, this links back to the previous couple of slides. In Eve, the FC, Fleet Commander, they're the overall content creator. They're the person that is basically in charge, and ultimately the buck stops with them. They decide where the fleet goes, what ships to fly, and what doctrine, whether to fight, disengage, whether to run away, who to target, so on and so forth. Now, ultimately, they're in charge. So just listen to them attentively, listen to their instruction, turn off all distractions, and stay focused. FCing is not easy. Make no bones about saying it's not an easy thing to do. And FCs can actually become very, very drained if fleet members don't listen, or if they have to repeat orders multiple times, if they have to give destinations again, if they have to say where they are, if they have to repeat orders, and so on and so forth. So when you do actually hit a fight, bearing in mind that probably, I would say on average in a fleet, you might get 10% of your time fighting, maybe. The other 90% is movement to get to a fight and or find content. You want your FC to be, when you go into that battle, you want them to stay as focused. You want them to be as fresh as possible. So you need to stay focused, stay attentive, and stay awake, and just be a little bit awesome. If you see what I mean, if you just try and be that little bit more awesome than you are already, you will make that FC smart. Can you tell I said that with a smile? Now, this is a common thing, not staying on the primary. It's a really, really super important point. Don't split damage. Put all your DPS on the primary target called by the FC. Now, depending on which FC you find with, often a primary and a secondary target will be called. Now, it's incredibly important that the damage application is focused on the primary target. The secondary target called is for you to lock it up, so that when the primary target dies and when the time comes, you can instantly shoot the secondary target rather than having to lock it. Where your damage application, the time between your damage application is going to reduce the delay between. So it doesn't mean you can all shoot the secondary target and until the primary has died because you're not in the right position. Now, sometimes that might be the case if you're short range and the primary is 30k off it, you're not going to be able to burn 30k. But for the most part, you're going to be around a relatively small area sort of thing. So I've got a really quick hypothetical example. Just if you think of this example, you've got 10 ships doing 250 damage, and you've got a hostile ship that requires 10,000 damage to destroy. Now, I know this is really, really very, very simple. I know it's not factoring in modules and so on and so forth, but effectively each volley equates to 2,500 damage. So therefore, hypothetically, for your volleys to hit, you need 4 volleys, if that makes sense. So it's 2.5 into 10,000, 4 volleys. I know it's a simple, crude example, but just run with it on this. Now, if you split this damage in 2, you're going to be doubling the time that it will take to destroy that ship, as you're having 2 lots of incoming damage. Yeah, because you're having the incoming damage leave the 2 ships on grid at the same time for longer, which will mean you're more likely to suffer casualties. If that makes sense. So if you try and kill 2 ships at the same time by halving your DPS, you're going to lead to more time spent trying to kill those ships, which is going to lead to more death and a reduction in the DPS. So you're probably going to die across the board. So I know it's a simple, crude example, but if you stay on the primary target, it means the primary target dies, and it means you can then focus on the secondary together rather than splitting the damage. And that's basically cut thrust. I know it's a crude example, but it still stands. Do yourself a favor, load the appropriate ammo, stay on the primary target until such time that it's dead, and then switch to the secondary. Yeah. And this leads on nicely again. The slide for we're all out to shoot people. Let's be totally realistic, and there's no shame in that. There is, however, shame in shooting a shuttle on a gate when there is a target far side that we're all trying to engage. All this does is prevent us all going through, and it's delay a fight potentially, or worse still, we might just miss a fight altogether. So and by contrast, you might actually end up getting aggression, and the hostile fleet that might be far side, they might jump into us, and we can't then take that gate. There's a reason why an FC will say don't shoot that target. So respect that decision, respect that order and that instruction. Uh, think bigger picture, not just one kill. That one kill that you've got might be, it might prevent a fleet from getting 20 or 30 kills. So if you be vigilant and if you respect that, that order on gate and that instruction that you were given by the FC, it will actually stand you in good stead because you will potentially get content pass side. This one is we've all seen it in fleet. So for anybody that hasn't flown a fleet before, when the FC calls E-War only, this basically means putting any type of module that does not do damage on the target. So that is a web, a scram, a point, a paint, a damp, a track, just basically not guns and drones in addition. Everyone in that fleet is out for PvP and they want to get on kills. Yeah. But by shooting pods and not applying E-War, you're potentially denying the fleet the opportunity to kill a ship, but also denying the opportunity for the people to get on kills. So I just say this, just don't be that person. Just respect the FC in terms of just applying E-War only. That one pod kill that you're going to get, and trust me on this, if there's one thing you take away from this slide, trust me on this, I know who the people are that kill pods because I see the same people doing it. And it will get noticed. FCs will know who tend to shoot pods first because it's on Z kill. We know who's killed the blingy pods. Go back to the 14 bill pod. I don't even know whether that was a lone pilot. But basically, E-War only. Put E-War on the pod only. Don't shoot it. And this links in nicely. As a follow-on, there have been occasions where I've seen pods disappearing during fleet fights. If you're doing that, you're not shooting the primary. So it actually links to the previous two slides. The pod's not going to harm you. It's not threat. There's no threat. The only thing that's a threat will be the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, the fourth target, the fifth target, so on and so forth. If you're shooting a pod, you're not shooting the primary. In effect, you're disrespecting your fleet mates, your logi pilots. The logi pilots will be potentially having to rep somebody that is being shot by a target, and you're shooting, and that person is potentially shooting pods. A pod poses no immediate threat, and it's not something for primary DPS until such time that other threats are neutralized. Now, there's actually another reason for this. If you shoot a pod and they're in their home system, it means they can reship. If that pod is in a bubble, you've bought us a minute where we don't have anything coming to that grid that is going to be a threat. So it means that we can focus on things that are going to be a threat. Yeah. You can kill it afterwards. Once it's killed afterwards, it means that they can potentially walk back another ship. And that's fine. But once the threats are neutralized, then it goes to the pods. And only do it when FC calls it. Now, the devil is in the detail. I have never turned up to a fancy dress party wearing a fancy dress. Now, that's because I read the instructions and I looked at the doctrine. If the doctrine is a kiting ship, a kiting doctrine with MWDs, you fit for speed, you fit for range. If the doctrine is a brawling doctrine and short range guns, fit for short range and guns and brawl. Flying the right ship is one of the golden rules in EVE. That it means that you fit with the fleet commander and the right modules and the right ammo and the right implants. You need to attach the doctrine, not your own personal taste or preferences. Fleet doctrines themselves, they're really, really carefully built around range, speed, damage, tank, and the fleet. And this is a personal thing for me. It's a team thing. It's a team sport. You're a cog in the machine. If you misfit, the whole thing will suffer. Again, a lot of these things, they do actually come down to, now that I'm sort of vocalizing this, a lot of it comes down to respect. Flying the right ship means respecting the doctrine that you fly. Also means respecting the FC. Flying the right ship means respecting the fleet also. It's not about showing up it's about showing up with rivals to do the job so that you don't diminish the experience for others. Yeah. I fly some fast ships. I've had people I actually had one person turn up in a Dominex once. I couldn't tell whether he was trolling or whether they were trolling me or not. I don't think they kind of understood what I was trying to get across to them. Just read the instructions. It's pretty simple. If you're in a fast warping fleet, you want to be warping fast. You will only ever warp as fast as the slowest ship. Every FC before a fleet, an FC should basically talk the fleet through the doctrine, explain its strengths, explain its weaknesses, and make sure that everyone knows the base and understands the base concept, and the individual capabilities in effect. The FC should assume no pre-knowledge, and so that people understand what they should be doing, at what time and why. Failure to do that will almost certainly get somebody killed. This kind of goes so far as to understanding your optimal ranges, understanding your fall-offs, understanding what ammo you should be shooting, understanding what risks there are if you're in close, understanding the limitations of being far away, and so on and so forth. You should know your base speed with your prop mods on, and what your speed is with overheat. It's great that you can get in a ship, but not actually understanding how to fly it is going to severely hamper your ability to actually fly it. And if you don't understand what it's meant to do, how are you meant to do it? It's fairly kind of key. It's pretty important. I always say that this is my don't forget your toothbrush moment. Make sure you got your consumables, your ammo, paste, scripts, anything you're going to need in your cargo hold before setting out. Pack a mobile depot with some spare modules. The FC will love you forever if you do that. Because if somebody does burn out, like an prop mod or so on and so forth, you can swap out and so on and so forth. You never know when that's going to be needed. I kind of touched on this inadvertently. I've included a section on warp speed, and it kind of links directly to the doctrine and the appropriateness of the ship that you're flying. And if you've done all of these checks and you find that your warp speed is less than the FC wants, you're going to hold up the whole fleet, because the fleet will warp in fleet warps. The fleet will warp at the speed of the slowest ship. It's kind of essential that you understand the expectations for warp speeds, so that you harmonize with the fleet, and so you harmonize with the doctrine. It's not just about slowing the FC down. It means the fleet itself can't move through space quick enough, but it also means they can't run away quick enough, which for those of you that have flown with me will know that the doctrine I choose to fly allows us to run away and disengage incredibly quickly. Bust stop a fight and then just GTFO kind of thing. I always shout this, spread tackle. When you're in a fleet, you'll often hear this term, spread tackle. Now, what this means is effectively it means exactly that. Spreading the tackle through the grid to ensure that all the targets are locked down. It doesn't mean tackling something that is already tackled. If something is already tackled, there could be 10 ships on grid. If you've got 10, targets, say for argument's sake, there's no point in two people tackling the same target. Once you hear that one target is called and tackled, tackle a second ship. Use your initiative. We don't need another point on that ship. If you're scram fit, go and chuck it on another ship that might be a kiting ship, for example. If you see like an Orthrus or something, chucking a scram on that FC will love you forever. Yeah, and trust me on that. Straight away, you're talking, it's a blingy ship. If you chuck a scram on that, that FC will probably shift primary onto that if you've got a group of caracals or whatever it might be. Hopefully someone else will then tackle a third ship, and then somebody will tackle a fourth ship, and so on and so forth, until basically all the targets are tackled. This will allow the FC to kill all the targets on that grid and not allow ships to escape. And spreading tackle and calling that you've got a target tackled is really important so that the FC knows which targets to move to next. A tackle target is not going to get away. Where a target that isn't tackled and is being shot at means it's just going to warp out. and it's not going to die. So you're wasting it. For one, you're wasting ammo, and for two, yeah, it's kind of frustrating. I think this one's pretty important. One of the most powerful ways to supercharge your experience in EVE Online, especially in high pressure situations in PvP, is to not panic. EVE does actually reward calm, deliberate decision making. When everything goes wrong, and they will, trust me, staying composed allows you to assess the situation, follow fleet commands, and make smart choices under fire. Panic leads to mistakes, which will eventually result in a fail cascade for all of you. Um, if you train yourself to take a deep breath and just keep listening, you'll find that you survive more. You'll have the ability to contribute more and enjoy the game on a deeper level. And sort of staying cool in chaos, but it doesn't just help you, it helps you. It keeps the fleet strong. Um, the good news is that's a skill that anyone can kind of learn. Um, if you first of all start by accepting that you're doing PvP, you will lose ships. It's part of the game. Embrace that loss as content. A calm pilot and a calm fleet is a deadly and valuable fleet, and it is super valuable thing to learn to do. Now, volunteering for a role. This is something you'll hear on my fleets all the time. I'm always looking for people to step up, take different roles. Volunteering for a role in EVE Online, in specific in NPSI fleet, actually, it's one of the best ways that you can supercharge your experience, um, because you're contributing meaningfully to the fleet success. Um, you can do this a number of ways. You become instantly more valuable um, by doing so. FCs will love people that step up, even if you're new. If you show the initiative, it will get you noticed and it will get you appreciation. Um, and trust me on that. I've had scouts, skirmishers step up that I know they're new scouts. I know they're new skirmishers. Um, I totally embrace that. I think it's the only place to learn. You can only learn by doing, not learn by reading. Learn by doing, I say. You learn, though, you learn way faster when you're doing it. You're going to gain insights into fleet mechanics, grid positioning. You'll learn about tactics that you just don't get from pressing F1. Um, it's totally more engaging for you as a person, as a pilot. You're not just another ship in a blob. You've got purpose. You have a responsibility. The FC will lean on you on every moment if they need to. And every moment will then become more exciting and it has a genuine, tangible impact. It also, and by in addition to this, it actually also builds trust in you from the community. Volunteering shows that you're serious. It shows that you're reliable, and over time, you'll be invited, into more advanced ops potentially. To fly more complex ships or more complex doctrines. You might even, if you're a Logi pilot, you might even then step up to be like a Logi anchor or a Logi FC, that kind of thing. Or you might be like running dictators or boosters or whatever it might be. Some of the best roles to volunteer for, in fact. Scouts, skirmishers, interdictors, command destroyers, boosters, links, logistics, ships that keep your fleet alive, squad commanders, combat probers, things like that. These are really, really simple things. Well, they're not really simple things, but they're simple things to step up and offer to do. But things like the directional scanner and setting it at certain ranges to help the FC, they're great ways to get involved and help the FC. NPSI communities, they're built on people who step up. And your next role, if you choose to step up, it could be a game changer for you and your own personal enjoyment of the game. And I, without a shadow of a doubt, I firmly, firmly believe that you will get more out of the game than just mashing F1. Trust me on that. Now, I've put this in here. It's fairly obvious. However, um, If you go for a bio break, that's fine. Everybody's going to be, potentially away at the same time if we're taking a fixed break. But if you have to go AFK for any emergency or so on and so forth, and the FC doesn't know this, there's a chance that you're going to get walked away. You might get walked into a threat, or you might get, into a fleet, or whatever it might be. You might, in effect, you might get exposed to hostile forces whilst you're not at your keyboard. You're not going to be able to defend yourself because we can't shoot your guns. You can't run away. So one of the things I say, if you do need to go AFK, the best thing to do is to just walk out, notify the FC. FC, I need to take a bio. I'm going to drop comms for a minute, or whatever it might be. That you need to be away from your keyboard for a few minutes, basically. However long that's going to be, flag yourself exempt from fleet warps. Create a mid-safe or an unaligned safe spot within system. When you land at that safe spot, turn on your prop mod and just burn in a random direction. Leave your keyboard, obviously, you can drop fleet, what have you. Now, there is a risk associated to that, obviously, combat probes and so on and so forth. But if you really, really, something that is an emergency, whatever it might be, you need to go AFK. Notify your FC, warp out, bookmark a mid-safe, flag exempt, and burn randomly. Once you're back, ask the FC, ask the fleet in the fleet chat. Actually, don't ask the FC because you can disrupt the fleet. Make your way back to the destination and your current location of the fleet. It just means that you're not obviously disrupting comms. It goes back to the comms and different comms respect and whatnot. And then that way you can obviously just take a by yourself, and whatever it might be, whatever emergency you're dealing with, you can then get back to fleet once is an appropriate time. I've put this in here because I think it is fair. Loot considerably. I'll be honest with you, on the fleets I run, I've actually given up on looting. There's no point. It's just inevitably, what I would say is inevitably when ships are destroyed, there's going to be loot to be distributed and collected. A loot policy in an open fleet is often overlooked, but it is actually an important thing. So it's kind of overlooked, I'd say. The majority, most NPSI groups request that valuable loot is sort of donated to cover SRP for critical role skirmishes, so on and so forth. That's usually announced at the start of the fleet, or people will know that as they kind of advance through the fleet. Now, any sort of trash loot, T1 stuff, T2 stuff, on my fleets, it's fair game. For any wrecks and or loot not earmarked to the FC, I'd say. Now, there are times when there are drops from big kills. We've divvied up loot just recently on the Apostle, I think it was, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's divided up and sold. Generally, when the FC will try and make a note of who was on the kill and at the point of the kill, and then divide it up accordingly. For the most part, though, the best practice is for you to actually has time to loot. Yeah, no one. The best practice for you as a pilot would be to ask before you scoop, especially if it's a fleet kill or expensive drop. If in doubt, just ask. You can also donate valuable items, or just not loot to the group, and just allow the FC to take it. Just be transparent about what you've taken. Don't pretend it hasn't happened. I've had that before, actually. That was quite a hilarious night, because I don't think the person realised that there was logs in the game that records loot. Now, what I would say is, I've got a really quick slide on sort of looting. Take away what you will from it. I think it's fairly obvious dues. Just check your loot policy, ask before looting, donate high value stuff. If you are going to donate to the FC, just contact them. If you can salvage, I don't know if anybody does actually ever salvage on fleets anymore. I don't think people do. It'd be quite cool having like a dedicated salvager following up, if only to like salvage my wreck. And don't ninja loot. That's basically the cut and thrust of it. Do's and don'ts there. It's fairly obvious. Don't loot during combat. Totally seen that happen before. It's like shooting pods, and I actually saw somebody salvaging once. That was quite funny. Yeah. Now, I think somebody mentioned in chat earlier on, panic is contagious. So is negativity. So staying positive in an NPSI fleet is crucial. It's not just for your own experience, but for the entire group. NPSI brings together loads of random people from across New Eden. So a great attitude is one of the most powerful contributions that you can make. NPSI is all about fun. That's why I call it Fun Inc. Let's face it. It's not about politics. It's not about kill boards, although kills obviously do go on kill boards. I know that. These fleets exist for content explosions and shared chaos. A positive attitude reinforces that spirit of kind of let's undot, make things happen. Let's go and kill loads of stuff. Now, positivity helps newer pilots thrive and stay upbeat and supportive. And supportive pilots, and being supportive makes newer pilots feel welcome and it keeps them flying. I don't want to be chasing people away. I don't want people to be chased away because we're not positive. I want to encourage them back and to come back for more, in effect. Now, fleet commanders rely on those good vibes and they lead fleets. I say this, in inverted commas, they lead fleets for free and they often use their own ISK and their time. A positively engaged fleet equals happier FCs, which equals more fleets for everyone. Now, if someone flames the FC, it kind of ruins morale. I've been in fleets where FCs, people have slated me, so on and so forth, and it's kind of demoralising. It does ruin morale. Staying positive lifts the group and be a model fleet member by doing this. It will set the tone for others. There are certain things that you can do to elevate that. Compliment people that might have done something great. Just say on comms, vocalize once in a quiet time. Say, and that was an amazing tackle you got there. I don't know how you held that. That was amazing. Or say how great the logistics pilots were. Logi, I can't believe I'm still alive. Or which is a regular thing for me, in all fairness. If there's a new player on the fleet, comment on how well they've done to stick up with the fleet and to have kept up. Yeah, it's exactly that. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. It's exactly that. You'd be amazed how much, and Logi is a classic example. You'd be amazed how much they actually do for how little love, if that makes sense. Logi is life. They keep us alive, and they're awesome for doing it. Big shout out to the Logi Bros, basically. It genuinely will be appreciated if you say thanks for that was an amazing fleet, Logi. Thanks again for what you do, or whatever it might be. Just message them, say something, vocalize on comms. You'd be amazed how much that will actually bring to them. Now, I kind of it sounds super simple after everything I've sort of said previously. Support all content creators. I know obviously you have veteran FCs. I see it all the time. In fact, you'll get a veteran FC that will get high, super high numbers in fleet, and you'll get a new FC that might get low numbers. I think it's a tragic shame, actually. The person that actually needs someone, that someone's starting out, that they're actually the person that needs support. They need help to help them grow. They need support to help them grow. And they need that, that assistance. Now, FCs are kind of the life of this game. Without them, we don't really have a game. And we've got a game that people wouldn't undock to and just spin chips. That's why there's a ship counter. And new FCs will never become veteran FCs if you don't turn up. There's nothing, I said this the other day, there's nothing more frustrating than low numbers for an FC, especially when you're a new FC. I've seen FCs just, people that are aspiring to become an FC, never FC again because their first fleet they posted, nobody turned up. They've gone beyond the realms of their comfort zone, and they might have, proper deliberated whether to do it or whether to not do it, and so on and so forth. And they've taken the courage to actually do it, and then up, it's got to be so frustrating for them. And that's why we've lost that person as an SE. Ultimately, that person was a content creator or was going to become a content creator. They're now not. So just support the SEs and support content creators that are out there. Could just be as simply just logging on 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5 people, and just running around in T1 frigates in, factional warfare, or, you're around your staging system in nullsec, or whatever it might be. Just even, God forbid, bouncing a filament and going out and doing a bit of a roam between half a dozen of you. That having that wherewithal about you to do that will be amazing if you can do that with somebody, and with somebody who will actually lead. So I was just taking a drink. So I did this. I think it's pretty critical. It's fairly obvious, actually. Hopefully, watch lists should not be a thing that you haven't heard of. Assuming you have, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, right click on the person's name and then click add to watch list. You can sort watch lists and color code accordingly. You can have scouts, probers, reppers, boosters, logi. You can have them as different colors. I do red to orange to yellow, and I think logi is in green, and then I do support pilots in blue. So sort of hyenas, keroses, that sort of stuff. It's personal preference. Make sure that you know who your primary scout is or who your scouts are, and have them in a location on your watch list and a color and or location on the watch list that you are familiar with. If you're having to scan through an alphabetical list and so on and so forth, it just makes it more problematic for you. If anyone disconnects in a key role, make sure that you add them back to the watch list. That's really, really important, because if that person then gets a tackle, you've then got to scan through your and you haven't added them back to your watch list. You've got to scan through a list of potentially 30, 40, 50 people, however big the fleet is. That could, those critical sort of 2, 3, 3, 4 seconds maybe, it could mean that person then dies, because obviously you're not into war quick enough, so on and so forth. So just, I'd say watch this. One of the things that I always go through right at the start before we even hit a dangerous area of space. Then that way you're doing it when there's no risk, there's no safety issues, threats, so on and so forth. It's just easier to do it there and then. Now, this is linked to one of the previous slides. In PvP, if you PvP long enough, you're going to lose your ship. Now, it's only a matter of where and when. So if you lose stuff, it's going to happen. It can't always be helped, and it's probably going to be your fault. So don't fly something that you can't afford to lose. And pretty much as soon as you undock, you consent to PvP. Now, there's two things I'm going to stress there, and it is linked to exactly what I said there. Internalize your dying moment. No one needs to know a blow by death account of your death. So just if you're going to die, can you just do it quietly? Unless you're in a critical ship and the FC absolutely needs to know, like if it's a logi ship or it's a booster or a dictator or something absolutely critical, a simple -1 DPS is all that's needed. We don't need to know that you're scrammed, that you're webbed, that you're bleeding structure. Oh, I'm overheating everything. I can't get out. I've burnt out my guns have burnt out now. Yeah, I'm dead. Just -1 DPS. That's all that's needed. It genuinely, I mean, it honestly, it does make me laugh, because, and I don't mean that in a nasty way. It makes me laugh because it kind of totally disrupts comms. It totally disrupts the flow of, especially if it's in a fight, because it's like, yeah, okay, you're dying. Yeah, okay, yeah. So prime, yeah. So stay on that prime. Yeah, yeah. Okay, you're dead. Yeah, okay, yeah. Thanks. Okay, yeah. Pods out. Okay, great. Yeah, okay. I know I'm being slightly facetious, but you see what I mean. It totally, exactly, save the drama for after the action. That's when you can sort of say, I was totally dying there, and it was horrendous, and the amount of DPS, that kind of thing. If you vocalize it there and then, no one's really going to be listening because they're going to be so focused. It's going to be totally lost on the fleet as to what's actually happened, and all it does is serve to choke up and clog up comms, basically. So this will come as no surprise. Obviously, Evgeny, thank you for the invite and so on and so forth. We've all been in this position. a new player starting something and learning. It Eve itself is reliant on people playing the game. Um, Eve's been dying for 21 years. It's actually just curiously enough, 2 hours ago, 2 hours, 10 minutes ago, it was actually my 21st birthday. So I can actually legally drink and game now. And not actually my physical birthday, my character's birthday, I should say. Um, we're here 21 years later, basically, in Eve. It's still alive. There are new players joining every day. And these are the people that we need to support. So if a new player asks a question in Fleet, help them out. If you know the answer, open a conversation with them. If they're struggling, help them get set up. They might be struggling with their comms. They might be struggling with they might not understand what hyperspatial is. They might not understand what implant they need. Now, given that opportunity, they might not be understanding where the fleet is, for example. It might not be understanding some of the orders the FC is given. Now, even just as simple as just opening a combo with them and just saying, right, align means clicking in space to this direction, or set yellow bit road. What's yellow bit road? What I don't understand. What's yellow bit road? It's just simple things that as soon as you know the answer, and as soon as somebody has advised you what the answer is, you're kind of golden in a way. Now, if you support them as they develop, they will become a better team and fleet member, and they're going to enjoy the experience more, and they're going to come back more. Failing to kind of do that, it will only create churn in characters, and it's going to cause characters to leave the game. They're going to feel overwhelmed. They're going to feel that their first experience it's a challenge. We've all been there. We know what they're going through. We know what the pitfalls are. So just lend an ear, reach out, support them. If you see that there's a new pilot, just open a combo with them. I've kind of alluded to this earlier. This slide is super important. I've been in fleets where, for the most part, backseat driving it's rare nowadays. However, there have been occasions where somebody always knows better than the FC, always has a better strategic plan, always has something to chime in. It's really, really frustrating. It's really, really frustrating for the fleet, for the FC, but it's also really, really frustrating for the fleet members. It kind of erodes the FC's confidence, and it erodes in effect, if it erodes their confidence, they're not going to FC. If you want to backseat, I said this the other day, if you want to backseat drive, set up your own fleet and run your own fleet yourself. You'd be amazed the amount of backseat drive FCs. They don't FC. They just don't FC, but they always know better than the FC. And I do find it quite ironic, to be fair. And yeah, just if you, it's fine. I would say if you want to give some constructive feedback to an FC, just combo them after the fact and just say, I couldn't help but notice you did this. I'm just curious as to why you did that, and how so you can understand the thought process yourself, because you might be totally overlooking something. It's why did you not take that engagement? Well, I didn't take that engagement because of X, Y, Z. They might not have seen all the recon. They might not have understood why the different nuances of the fight, for example, or the strategy that might be in place for that particular point in time. Now, I probably should have put this right at the start, in all fairness. Being on time, it's one of the simplest, but actually the most powerful ways that you can kind of contribute to a fleet. Form up is the foundation of the entire process. It's where we assemble. It's where the fleet roles are agreed. It's where E-War is balanced. Logi numbers are confirmed. It's where scouts and tacklers and, where we lay out the plan, in effect. If people show up late, sort of 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes later, what have you, you're missing more than the form up. You're missing the chance to be fully prepared, fully briefed, and integrated into what's going on, understanding whether we're going to Thera, for example. Now, NPSI fleets and fleets generally actually rely on tight coordination and voluntary leadership. FCs are giving up their own time. All the support pilots are giving up their own time to create content for others. If you're arriving late or unprepared, you're going to slow everybody else down. you're going to force the FC to repeat information or cause delays. Somebody being 5 minutes late may cause an FC, for example, to repeat, say, 30 seconds of something for 30 people or 40 people. Now, that's a lot of collected wasted time. Now, I know it's only 30 seconds, for the person that might be late, but it's 30 people's 30 seconds. Now, sort of straight away, that all tots out. And in worse cases, and this is actually one of the things that I've had, in worse cases, it actually disrupts the fleet balance. Especially if you're flying Logi or if you're in EWAR or if you're trying to take a filament, for example. Turning up, to a fleet 15 minutes late when we're 23 in fleet, and then all of a sudden we're now not going to take a filament. We're now having to travel to somewhere. It means that it's just delaying the content from actually hitting us. We're then having to travel 10 hops or 15 hops, whatever it might be, to get to where the content is. If you show up early or even on time, because I freely admit I'm on the money at 30 past. I will be there for the fleet on bang on that time. You're not only demonstrating to that FC and your support pilots that you respect them, you're also gaining that time to check your fit, listen to comms, the instructions, solve any last minute issues before you undock. You're also more likely to step up to take a role as well. Because if you're there early and it's radio silence when I say, "Does anybody fancy skirmishing tonight?" That's when everybody will just sort of step up and volunteer. But my last couple of content slides is centered around added value. Providing added value to an NPSI fleet means doing more than just showing up and pressing F1. It will enhance the fleet's performance, your pilot experience, and your own community vibe, even in very, very small, unnoticed ways. Now, this might be in the form of like a utility, with things like a combat prober or having spare dicta bubbles. Somebody's actually started doing that recently for us, and just chucking a cargo hold full of spare dicta bubbles. It's amazing because when the dicta pilot, it means we don't have to be so sparing with the bubbles, or if we have to be overzealous with the number of bubbles we're using, we've got the ability to do so rather than being quite sort of relaxed with them, if you see what I mean. So, or even packing a static bubble, for example. It also, though, added value comes in the form of seeding markets, building ships, recording fights, sharing videos, SRP, that kind of thing. There are many ways that you can help. You add value to NPSI by being engaged, by being supportive and being prepared. These are social fleets at the end of the day, at their best. And the more you give, the more you get back. I can say that for free. The more you get back, you will get more back in terms of fun, kills, connection with people, and just having a laugh with people, basically. I absolutely believe that. My last slide. Did you notice anything amongst those slides? I kind of got a bit carried away. You actually got 30. Actually got 30 tips. So I kind of got a little bit carried away when I was doing it, and she actually got 30 tips. So that's pretty much it from me. I've got just a little slide there, which is basically a crib sheet with all the top tips on. I'll chuck it on Discord, and yeah, full advertising. I'll link up Discord at the end. That is pretty much it for me. My last slide is a call out to everybody. I'm hoping that off the back of this week, that you'll be able to come along to a load of fleets, come along to a load of roams, and that you'll feel a bit more inspired to kind of step out your comfort zones, to try something new and be a little bit bolder. So this is where you come in. You're in a perfect position to help me get this list to 50. I'd really, really like to get this to 50 because 30 is a bit of a weird number. It kind of made me a bit twitchy. So if during the course of the next few weeks, or next week or so, or once you start going on to NPSI roams more frequently, and you have an time to reflect on this talk. And if you feel that there's something I've omitted, just drop me a mail. There might be cookies involved if ever I'm eating. That's it. So that's the end of the presentation on supercharging your NPSI experience. Happy to take whatever questions you might have. I've added all my contacts there. If you want to reach out with any questions or comments or anything like that, just drop me a mail. And don't forget to bring donuts. But if you want to ask any questions, just put a Q in, Fleet, or I'll try and ask the questions as I can. Yeah, cowbell. Do you need the cowbell? There you go, more cowbell. Was that enough? Horn, okay. Okay, so Leaf Krieger has asked, in regards to preparedness, many doctrine fits will have like 25 to 50 repair page, maybe 600 to 1,000 long short ammo. Are these bare minimum with your expectation when you add more yourselves? Okay, right. So I would say on seats that I run, that is the bare minimum. I would say just bring 2K at the cost it is. It's not expensive. If you're struggling for ammo and so on and so forth, just ask and somebody will toss you a Minisk or whatever it is to buy the associated ammo. There's no point going out on their own without ammo. I mean, you could do. Some people go with no guns and just tackle modules. But definitely just pack as much ammo as you can, but we hold basically. And if you can bring things like any bubbles like for dictators, or like static bubbles, that sort of stuff, that's always like super appreciated. If you do, just ding me and say, I brought a load of ammo, I brought a load of this, or I brought some mobile static bubbles. I just say you did, and I'll give you some S for it, because if we ever need to use them, totally viable thing to pack. John Epot has asked, what is your favourite role other than FC? If somebody can link my Z kill, it's fairly obvious. I started out originally, well, actually, when I started PvPing, it was early on in the kind of Loki, I forget what patch it would have been around, maybe Trinity, not sure. There or thereabouts. It would have been around the Cloaky times. So it was literally, I just lived in a Cloaky ship, so just for Rapier almost exclusively. And then I kind of realized that flying recons and losing recons was a little bit awkward because it was quite expensive back then. You're talking at the time, you could buy a frigate. I mean, the economy has gone a bit bonkers, so it's if I say cost wise, it was like super expensive, like 250 mil at the time, sort of thing. But I know that's not by economy standards now, it's not a huge amount, but back then it was a significant amount. And so I used to fly a lot of recons, but I then kind of moved over to flying skirmish almost exclusively. I forget how many skirmish kills I've got, as in a stiletto. It's probably, I don't know, probably a couple of thousand, maybe, I don't know. Maybe more, actually, thinking about it. But basically, almost exclusively flying interceptors. So +1 scout, tackle, that sort of stuff. I did a lot solo in Tyrannuses, Tyranni. Not both two at the same time, obviously, just one. And slicers. I think I forget the numbers actually on those, but I'd say bang for buck. I said this on Saturday actually. For me, internet spaceships is all about fast and furious. It's all about the pew pew zoom zoom. When it's chug chug, boom boom boom, like that, I'm not interested in it. It's very rare that you'll see me in anything larger than sort of BC size, so on and so forth. So for me, sort of, I'd say sub-cruiser class would be fair. So dictators, that kind of stuff. Don't ever put me in a booster though, because I cannot boost for toffee. It's quite hilarious. I couldn't boost a stationary target one time. Literally, I'm not joking. I tried it about 10 times. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Bates, it totally has. I mean, I could go even more than that, to be honest, but I'd need about two more beers than that. So hopefully, John, that answers the question. Small, fast, furious, that kind of stuff. Hammer Conte killer, I think you'll say.
Thank you very much. That thoroughly answered my question. Also, any tips for new scouts?
Any tips for new scouts? Understand your D scanner, understand your overview, and just go out and practice. I sometimes do this. I think it freaks out the locals when not obviously where I live, but in game. But I will go into nullsec. I'll just take a filament in a stiletto on my own, and I will just go out and just try and descan stuff and just tackle them. So I literally just go out on my own. It's a great way of practicing. It also freaks people out when you tackle them and then just let go. It's like, what is this, like catch and release day or something? But yeah, do that. That would be what I would say. Learn your directional scanner. That is the cut thrust of it. We've actually got, and Laura, I assume you're cool with it, mentioning about the NSP sort of thing, about the basic stuff. Yeah, cool stuff. What we've done is I originally I came from a corporation called Agni Unleashed. That was where I kind of learned PvP, and we kind of shut up our doors back in 2018. But we actually ran a PvP basic class and university. We had about 10,500, 11,000 graduates, I think it was, over the sort of, I think it was about 12 years that we were around. And so we used to run a basic class every couple of weeks. And I've totally forgotten where I was going with this. Somebody give me a prompt.
NSP.
NSP, that was it. So NSP, yeah. So the new player space program is basically we've got a basic class, like a light version of this, that runs every fortnight, and on alternate fortnights we have a specialized class. So it would be like scouting and skirmishing. And I think that was Z, wasn't it? I was going to say that's Z. So the person that actually spoke Z is actually the tutor for that. So he runs the skirmish class, and so it is pretty much we form out in Jita. We head out and just do some basically G runs through some sort of practical stuff. Goes through some of the thought process, some of the ideas behind skirmishing. So looking at directional scanners, so on and so forth. Move a little bit slower. And there's no pressure. I mean, we've gone out before and we've not killed anything, but we've had scouts that have gone out and tackled things, and it's the first time they've tackled something, and it's like, and you can hear the elation in their voices, and they are so proud, and everybody in that fleet is absolutely rooting for them, and it's awesome. Just come along.
Thank you. That has actually happened to me a week back. I tackled my first Ishtar in Nullsec on an NPSI.
I mean, to be fair, tackling an Ishtar in nullsec these days is fairly rare, so good on you for doing that, because they're all bots. I didn't say that though out loud. Was that my inner monologue coming out? Okay, so hopefully that's answered that question. But if if you want any help or just just ask, or any tips, just ask. I know Revenged is actually Revenged of NG. He's doing a talk tomorrow, about 1900, something like that, I think it is. He is an amazing scout, is an amazing hunter. He actually uses an interdictor because he's out looking for big stuff. So yeah, come along to that. I think he's a different league altogether of scout. I have never seen anyone so spatially aware and as quick. A couple of his videos I've seen, it's just his what's it called, APM, as in actions per minute on his mouse, is just insane. I've never seen anything like it. So come on to that. That will be amazing. If he's got any videos to show, I don't know, but yeah, it's and if you can get on a fleet with him, definitely drop into that fleet. You will get some amazing kills.
Thank you again.
No problem. So any other questions? I think I've caught the questions so far, haven't I? There's not been anything else. Just noise requests. Do more noise if you want, but that'd be a bit weird now. Delirium, yes, there is. If you go to the NSP, there's some resources there. I'll link that sort of further down the line. I probably wouldn't be able to find it on Discord at the moment, and but I'll ding it in the channel. It's pretty simple because I mean the irony of me doing a Logi resource video, that was kind of hilarious. Having done Logi probably about once by accident. Do you know what? Somebody, I think they were trolling me, to be fair. It was a like Secret Santa like years and years back, and they gave me like 10 bantams, I think it was, or 10 bursts or something. And let's face it, the person that is the least likely to be in Logi is probably me. But I Logied the shit out of those Logis. But pretty sure I don't think I've got any of them left anymore. Okay, so unless there's any other questions, I think we're pretty much done here. So thank you all for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it. If any like burning questions come up sort of further down the line, or if you get any thoughts as to stuff that I could add to this, so on and so forth. Like I said, I'll be honest with you, I kind of knocked this together yesterday. So it's very, very, very last minute. I enjoyed Saturday so much. I thought I'd come along, just chill with you guys for an hour, and impart some knowledge. Hopefully, get something out of it. So yeah, that's it from me. Assume anybody wants any questions, just ding me, and anything after the fact, let me know. Peace out too. Thank you very much.